They stopped him at the lift and said, "That deck is not for people like you." Quick one before we jump in. Where are you watching from today? City and state, or country if you're outside the U.S.? And if you're here for stories about dignity, fairness, and real accountability, tap like, subscribe, and stay with me. Now listen. The ship was called the Silver Meridian. All glass, gold trim, and soft piano music that made you feel like you should whisper, even when you were just ordering a coffee. Malcolm Jamison stepped into the lobby wearing a clean white linen shirt, dark trousers, and a calm expression that did not ask anyone for permission. In his left hand, he carried a small gift bag with tissue paper peeking out the top. Neat, thoughtful, like it mattered. He checked his watch, not in a nervous way, in a timing way, like there was a moment he was trying not to miss. He walked past the bar, past the holiday couples in matching outfits, past the big welcome sign and towards the coffee station. That's when he saw her. An older black woman in a staff uniform, moving carefully, quietly, like the floor itself was something she had to apologize for. She was carrying a tray, just cups and napkins, but her face looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with work. Malcolm's eyes softened for half a second. He did not walk over. He did not wave. He just watched her, and then looked away like he was holding back a secret. He checked his watch again. Then he walked to the lift lobby. A young crewman stepped out from the side, sharp uniform, neat hair, smile that looked friendly until you listened closely. "Sir," the crewman said, blocking the lift just slightly, "that deck is restricted." Malcolm pressed the button for the Aurora deck. The crewman's smile tightened. "I'm going to need to see your room key." Malcolm did not argue. He reached into his pocket slowly, careful, because he had learnt something a long time ago. When people already want to see you as a problem, even your movements get judged. He handed over the key card. The crewman glanced at it, then glanced at Malcolm, then back at it again like the card was lying. "You're on Aurora?" he said, voice rising. Malcolm nodded once. "That's what it says." The crewman let out a small laugh, like Malcolm was being silly. Then he raised the card slightly, so nearby people could see, and said louder, "This card has been reported." Malcolm blinked. "Reported by who?" "Sir," the crewman said, still smiling, "step out of the lift." The lift doors stayed open. The lobby stayed quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind of quiet where people turn their heads and pretend they're not watching. A man in a polo shirt tilted his phone, filming without shame. Two women paused near the champagne bar, eyes wide like they'd been handed free entertainment. Malcolm stepped out of the lift calmly because he could feel where this was going, and he was not going to give them what they wanted. The crewman spoke like a public announcement. "We've had issues with stolen cards, for everyone's safety." For everyone's safety. Those words always sounded clean, even when the meaning behind them was dirty. Malcolm looked around at the staring faces. Then he looked back at the crewman. "What's your name?" Malcolm asked, calm. The crewman hesitated. "Elliot." Malcolm nodded. "Thank you, Elliot." Elliot signaled with a hand, and within seconds, two security officers appeared. One was tall, stiff posture, professional face, the kind of man trained to look neutral, even when he was not. The other was older, shorter, with tired eyes. He looked like he had seen too many moments like this and survived by keeping his feelings quiet. The tall officer spoke first. "Sir, come with us, please." Malcolm looked him in the eye. "Am I being detained?" The tall officer's tone stayed smooth. "Just a verification." Malcolm nodded. "Then I'd like your names." The tall officer frowned slightly, then tapped his badge. "Caldwell." The older officer muttered, "Mason." Malcolm repeated them softly, like he was placing them carefully on a shelf. "Caldwell, Mason." Mason's eyes flickered for a second, like he did not enjoy being named. Malcolm looked at Elliot again, then back to Caldwell. A simple phone call to guest services would verify it. Why not do that here? Caldwell's jaw tightened. "Sir, let's not make this difficult." Malcolm's voice stayed even. It isn't difficult. It's a phone call. Caldwell motioned towards a side corridor. Phones followed. Whispers followed. That man in the polo kept filming as Malcolm walked away like he was recording a thief, not a paying guest. And Malcolm kept his shoulders relaxed because he refused to perform. No shouting, no pleading, no angry outburst they could label as aggressive. As they moved, the retired couple from earlier stepped forward. A white couple in their late 60s, sun-kissed, the kind of people who looked like they'd done cruises for years. The woman raised her hand slightly. "Excuse me. We saw everything." Caldwell held up his palm. "Ma'am, please." But she stayed firm. "He did nothing wrong. That staff member embarrassed him for no reason." Her husband nodded. "We were right there. You can check the cameras. This is not right." Malcolm met their eyes and gave a small nod, grateful but careful. He did not ask them to fight his battles, but he noted them. Because sometimes the difference between truth and silence is one person willing to say, "I saw it." Caldwell moved Malcolm down the corridor and through a door that felt like it led into the ship's backbones. The lighting changed. The air changed. No glamour, no soft music. Just white walls, a desk, 2 chairs, and a monitor showing live camera feeds. Caldwell sat behind the desk. Mason leaned by the door, arms crossed. Malcolm sat down slowly. Caldwell asked, "Full name?" "Malcolm Jamison." "Room number?" Malcolm slid the keycard across. Caldwell typed, frowned, typed again, then looked up like the computer had told him something he didn't want to say out loud. "This suite is on Aurora deck," Caldwell said carefully. "Yes," Malcolm replied. Caldwell's tone sharpened. "How did you obtain this card?" Malcolm blinked slowly. "At check-in, like everyone else." Caldwell leaned back. "We've had incidents. People paying staff, getting access where they shouldn't." Malcolm nodded. "So your first thought was that I'm involved in that?" Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "I didn't say that." "You didn't need to," Malcolm said quietly. Mason shifted near the door. Not hostile, not eager, just uneasy. Malcolm looked at Mason. "How long have you worked security, Mason?" Mason shrugged. "Long enough," Malcolm nodded. "Long enough to know this isn't about safety." Mason did not answer. Caldwell stood up. "I'm going to step out and verify." The door clicked behind him, leaving Malcolm and Mason alone. Mason exhaled slowly, like the room finally had space to breathe. Then Mason lowered his voice. "Listen, you can make this easy." Malcolm's tone stayed gentle. "Easy for who?" Mason rubbed his jaw, eyes tired. "For you, for us, for everyone." Malcolm waited. Mason continued. "They'll offer you something. Credit, vouchers, a little apology. You sign a form that says it's resolved. You go back to your holiday." Malcolm's eyes stayed on him. "And if I don't?" Mason hesitated. "Then it becomes messy." Malcolm smiled slightly, not amused. "So the mess becomes my fault." Mason's face tightened. "That's not what I mean." Malcolm leaned forward just a little. "Tell me something, Mason. When that crewman called, what did he say?" Mason's eyes flickered. Malcolm's voice stayed calm. "Exact words." Mason swallowed. "He said there was a possible stolen key card." Malcolm nodded. "Did he describe me?" Mason's mouth opened, then closed. Malcolm waited, patient. Mason finally said it, quiet, almost ashamed. He said, "A black man was trying to access Aurora." Malcolm's chest rose and fell in one slow breath. Not shocked, not surprised, just tired. Mason rushed, defensive. "It's procedure to identify." Malcolm shook his head gently. "No, it's a procedure to justify fear." Mason looked away. Then he said something even quieter. "This ship has been tense lately. Staff are under pressure, guests complain, management panics, and certain guests get watched more than others." Malcolm nodded slowly, filing it away. He glanced at his watch again. Mason noticed. "You've checked that thing 3 times. Malcolm's voice softened. "I'm trying not to be late." Mason frowned. "Late for what?" Malcolm looked at him. Not something you'd understand. Mason started to reply, but the door opened. Caldwell returned with a woman in a navy blazer, hair neat, smile polished, gold pin on her lapel. She walked in like she owned the air. "Mr. Jamison," she said warmly, "I'm Veronica Lane, guest relations manager. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." Malcolm nodded. "Inconvenience." Veronica kept her smile. "A misunderstanding. We can resolve it quickly." She slid a paper across the desk with a pen. "It's a simple resolution form," she said. "We're adding $500 on board credit. You sign, and we'll upgrade a few things to make up for this unpleasant moment." Malcolm looked at the paper and did not touch it. Veronica's smile held, but her eyes sharpened a little. "Mr. Jamison?" Malcolm asked. "What time does the housekeeping shift end?" Veronica blinked. "Sorry?" Malcolm repeated calmly. "Housekeeping. What time does the shift end tonight?" Caldwell frowned. Mason's eyes lifted quickly, then dropped again. Veronica gave a small laugh, like Malcolm was being odd. "I'm not sure why that matters." Malcolm's voice stayed steady. "It matters because you're trying to make this private." Veronica's smile tightened. "We're trying to be considerate." Malcolm nodded once. "You mean discreet?" Veronica leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Jamison, you're on holiday. Why ruin it? Take the credit. Enjoy the ship." Malcolm's eyes stayed on her. "What does the form say?" Veronica's tone stayed light. "That the matter is resolved and you won't pursue further action." Malcolm nodded slowly. "So the price of my dignity is $500. Veronica's smile twitched. "That's not what this is." Malcolm's voice stayed gentle but firm. "Then what is it?" Veronica's expression cooled a degree. "Mr. Jamison, with respect, you're overreacting." There it was, the pivot, from apology to accusation. Malcolm nodded like he'd been waiting for it. "There it is," Veronica frowned. "There what is?" "The moment I become difficult because I won't accept disrespect quietly," Malcolm said. Veronica sat back, eyes narrowing. "We have guests to consider. We can't have scenes," Malcolm replied, calm. "Then you should not create them." Veronica's voice sharpened. "If you refuse to cooperate, we can escalate this. It will be inconvenient." Malcolm held her gaze. Then he said quietly, almost to himself, "Not tonight." I promised her. "Not tonight." Veronica blinked. "What did you say?" Malcolm looked up. "You heard me." He reached for the small gift bag and placed it on the desk. Veronica's eyes flicked to it. "What is that?" Malcolm did not answer straight away. He asked the same question again, slower. "What time does housekeeping finish on this deck?" Mason's throat tightened like he already knew. Veronica's voice became cautious. "Around 10. "Why?" Malcolm nodded once as if confirming something. "Good." Then he looked at Veronica and said calmly, "The woman you embarrassed in the lobby is not a stranger to me." The room went still. Caldwell's face changed, confusion sliding into concern. Mason stared at the floor. Veronica tried to keep control. "Mr. Jamison, please explain." Malcolm opened the gift bag and pulled out a small box, the kind you'd put a bracelet in, simple, elegant. "I booked Aurora because my mom works on this ship," Malcolm said softly. Veronica's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Malcolm continued, voice steady. "She has cleaned suites for people who wouldn't look her in the eye. She has smiled at guests who acted like she was invisible." He paused. "Tonight was meant to be the first time she stepped onto a premium deck as a guest, not as staff. I wanted her to feel what respect feels like." Veronica swallowed. Caldwell stared at Malcolm like he was seeing a whole new story he didn't prepare for. Mason looked pained, like the truth hit him in the ribs. Malcolm's voice stayed calm, but each word landed heavier. "And you just showed me exactly why she never believed it was possible." Veronica tried to recover. "Mr. Jamison, I am sorry, but we can handle this quietly." Malcolm shook his head. "No." Veronica's eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me?" Malcolm's voice was firm now. "You humiliated me publicly, so accountability cannot be private. Veronica's tone tightened. We can't make a scene, Malcolm replied evenly. You already did. He stood up slowly. Now we fix it where it happened, he said. Veronica's jaw clenched. Sir, I cannot allow you to stir up guests. Malcolm looked at her. You stirred them when you treated me like a thief. Caldwell hesitated. Mr. Jamison, let's just... Malcolm interrupted him gently. Caldwell, I asked for a phone call in the lift lobby. You chose a corridor. Caldwell's face flushed. Malcolm looked at Mason. Mason, you told me to take money for silence. Mason's eyes lowered. I was trying to... Malcolm nodded. I know. And that's part of the problem, too. Malcolm turned back to Veronica. We're going back to the lobby. You're going to correct the accusation out loud, the same way it was made. Veronica's lips parted. This is not procedure, Malcolm replied quietly. Neither was profiling a paying guest and calling it safety. A beat. Then Veronica gave a tight nod like she was swallowing pride. Fine, she said, but keep it calm. Malcolm's eyes were steady. It has been calm, the whole time. They walked back through the corridors and into the lobby, and Malcolm felt the eyes return like a tide. People turned, phones rose. That same man in the polo was still there, still filming. Malcolm looked straight at him and said calmly, It's all right. Keep recording. Veronica stiffened. Sir, please, Malcolm replied gently. No, this is how you did it. This is how you fix it. The lift doors opened, and by the coffee bar, just as before, was the older black woman. His mum, still in uniform, still holding a tray, trying to shrink into the background. Her eyes met Malcolm's. Her face changed instantly, shock and fear and love colliding all at once. Malcolm, she whispered. Malcolm swallowed once. Hi, Mum. Her hand trembled. What are you doing here? He stepped closer, careful, like he didn't want to frighten her with the attention. I came to bring you up, he said softly. As a guest. Her face tightened with something painful. I told you not to. Malcolm nodded, eyes gentle. I know. Then he looked around at the watching faces. And I hate that you had to tell your own son not to witness what you lived through. A quiet murmur moved through the lobby. The retired couple stepped forward again, standing beside Malcolm's mum like a shield. The woman said softly, Ma'am, we saw what they did. Malcolm's mum looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Malcolm shook his head gently. Mum, no, not you, not today. At that moment, a radio crackled and footsteps approached fast. The captain arrived, flanked by staff, face tense with the kind of concern that only shows up when reputation is at risk. He took one look at the phones, then he saw Malcolm's mum in uniform, and his expression changed, not anger, shame. Mr. Jamison, the captain said. I understand there's been a situation. Malcolm nodded calmly. There has. The captain looked at Veronica. Report. Veronica's voice wavered slightly. A misunderstanding with a key card, Captain, Malcolm replied, steady. No. A public accusation, based on assumption. The captain turned back to Malcolm. Sir, I apologize. Malcolm held up a hand. Not just me. He turned slightly, letting the lobby hear him. My mum has cleaned your rooms, Malcolm said, voice calm but carrying. She has smiled at guests who wouldn't return it. She has swallowed disrespect because she needs her job. His mum squeezed the tray handles tighter, eyes glassy. Malcolm continued, still calm. Tonight, I tried to step into a space I paid for, and your staff treated me like I stole it. He looked at the captain. This is not a misunderstanding. It's a habit. The captain's jaw tightened. He looked at Caldwell. Security. Why was he removed publicly? Caldwell hesitated. We were verifying, Malcolm answered for him. Verification is a phone call. This was theater. The captain turned to Veronica. You offered a hush agreement. Veronica's face drained. "Captain, I was trying to resolve it." Malcolm's voice stayed steady. "You were trying to bury it." The captain took a slow breath. Then he faced the lobby. "To our guests," he said, voice firm, "what happened here was wrong. It should not have happened, and it will not be ignored." He turned to Veronica. "Step aside. You are relieved of duty pending investigation." Veronica's eyes widened. "Captain!" He cut her off. "Now." A ripple went through the crowd. The polo man's phone stayed up. "Good. Let it." The captain turned to Caldwell. "Full written report, immediately, include every name and every decision made." Caldwell nodded stiffly. The captain turned to Elliot, who stood a few steps back, face pale. "Elliot," the captain said, "you will be retrained and reassigned. You do not accuse guests loudly in public without verification. Ever." Elliot's throat bobbed. "Yes, Captain." Mason stared at the floor, shame and relief mixing together. Malcolm looked at Mason, and Mason finally lifted his eyes. Malcolm gave him a small nod, like he was saying, "You can still choose who you are." Then Malcolm turned back to the captain. "I don't want revenge," Malcolm said. "I want correction." The captain nodded slowly. "What do you want done?" Malcolm spoke clearly. "First, you apologize to my mom. Out loud. Not in a corridor, not in an office. Here." The captain stepped closer to Malcolm's mom. "Ma'am," he said, voice gentler now, "I'm sorry for what happened to your son and for what you have clearly endured here. You deserve respect." Malcolm's mom's lips trembled. "Thank you." Malcolm continued. "Second, tomorrow morning you hold an open forum for crew. No managers intimidating them, anonymous reporting, real protections." The captain nodded. "Agreed." "Third," Malcolm said, "a written statement to all guests, clear, not vague, not if anyone was offended, clear." The captain nodded again. "Agreed." Malcolm paused. Then he added softly, "And finally, tonight my mom is off shift at 10. She's coming to Aurora Deck as a guest, not staff." His mom's eyes widened. "Malcolm," he smiled gently. "Mom, please." The retired couple smiled warmly, like their hearts had been waiting for this part. The captain gestured to a staff member. "Arrange it, immediately." And just like that, the power in the room shifted. Not because Malcolm shouted, not because he threatened, but because he refused to let shame be the final word. Malcolm turned to the crowd, voice calm, steady. "She has nothing to be ashamed of," he said. "The shame belongs to anyone who could accept her labor but not offer her humanity." A silence followed. Not awkward, not tense. A silence that sounded like people thinking. The captain spoke again, firm. "Anyone who recorded, I ask that you respect the privacy of our crew." Malcolm looked at the man filming and nodded once. "You can stop now." The man lowered his phone slowly, like he'd just realized he'd been holding up a mirror. Later that night, when the ship's lights softened and the lobby thinned out, Malcolm waited near the lift with the gift bag. At 10 on the dot, his mom came out from the crew corridor, no tray now, hands empty, shoulders still tense like she expected someone to call her back. She changed into a simple dress, nothing flashy, just clean and pretty. But the way she walked, careful and cautious, told the truth. She had spent years being told without words where she belonged. Malcolm stepped forward and held out the small box. His mom stared at it. "What is that?" He smiled gently. "Open it." She opened it. Inside was a bracelet, simple and elegant, with one word engraved, "Belong." Her eyes filled instantly. "I'm not used to this," she whispered. Malcolm's voice softened. "That's why we're doing it." He helped her put it on, careful, like he was placing something sacred. Then he offered his arm. She hesitated, still carrying that old fear of being seen. Malcolm leaned closer and whispered, "You're not sneaking. You're not begging. You're walking in." His mom swallowed and nodded. They stepped into the lift together. As the doors closed, Malcolm looked at her and said, "I'm sorry you ever felt you had to warn me not to see it." His mum stared at the floor for a moment, then she said quietly, "I didn't want you to carry my hurt." Malcolm replied softly, "You carried it alone long enough." On Aurora deck, the carpet was thicker, the air smelled like expensive perfume, and the lighting was warm like it was designed to flatter wealth. His mum looked around, half amazed, half wary. A staff member approached, smiling. Then, recognizing her uniform background, the staff member paused, a flicker of uncertainty, and Malcolm watched it closely. This time, the staff member smiled wider and said, "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome." Not, "Who are you?" Not, "Can I help you?" Not, "Are you lost?" "Welcome." His mum's shoulders loosened a fraction. They sat together by the window, looking out at black water and scattered lights in the distance. His mum held her wrist up and stared at the word again. Belong. Malcolm let the silence sit for a moment. Then he said, "Tomorrow they'll hold the forum. Staff will speak. Real changes will start." His mum nodded slowly. "I hope so." Malcolm looked at her. "Even if they forget, I won't." And in the days that followed, the ship's culture began to crack open in the light, not because of one dramatic speech, but because one quiet moment of profiling was forced to face the truth in public. Elliot apologized properly, not performative, not defensive, human. Mason filed a full statement, and for the first time in a long time, he looked like a man who could sleep at night. Veronica's polished smile could not protect her anymore, and the captain learned the hard way that luxury means nothing if your dignity policy is cheaper than your champagne. Now, before we end, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been judged or profiled in a place you paid to be? If you have, or if you've seen it happen to someone you love, drop a comment. I read them, and people watching will read them too. Because the truth is, humiliation thrives when everyone pretends not to notice. And here's the lesson to carry with you. People love to say respect is earned, but dignity is not a reward. It's the starting point. If someone can enjoy your service, they can offer you humanity. And if someone is brave enough to shame you in public, they better be brave enough to take accountability in public. So if this story moved you, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes dignity should never be negotiable.